thanks so much for letting us, speak to you and for your time attending. As she said, we're going over the SourceAbled Stop Job Seeking and Start Job Finding. So my name is Ann Fahey, and I'm a solutions specialist. Just kind of by way of background, I've worked with a population of individuals that have a disability for probably the last 8 years prior to coming to Rangam SourceAbled. And I always say my biggest accomplishment is the 27 years of hands-on experience, because my oldest son is on the spectrum and has various challenges. And I've seen, the difficulty that he can have in finding a job opportunity with some challenges that he faces. I'm going to let Dave introduce himself, and then I'm going to just kind of go over what this presentation is going to cover.
Great. Thanks, Ann, and thanks so much for having us, everyone. It's really great to meet you. My name is Dave. My title is Senior Strategic Director, Strategic Partner, Strategic Partnerships, excuse me. So what I'm trying to do is kind of build those coalitions, those partnerships with all of the wonderful sources of talent out there. Universities like yours, also service providers or state agencies, community colleges. And a little bit about my background. I come to Rangam, which is a staffing company, a workforce solutions company, and this is new to me. I come to this world from disability organizations. I worked at Autism Speaks for 12 years and helped start their adult services division and employment services. And before that, I worked in schools. I was a paraprofessional working in schools where I live here on Long Island. And we're thrilled to present this to you today to show you how we're helping companies hire people and benefit from people with disabilities, people with neurodivergence. So thanks, Ann.
Sure. So basically what we're going to cover is an introduction to Rangam, which is the parent company name, and SourceAbled, employment interviewing and disabilities, resume writing tips, networking advice, kind of SourceAbled at a glance, some of the opportunities that are available through the program, and how you can get started with that. The next page, Dave, thanks. So basically, Rangam, and it looks like Rangam, but we're pronounced Rangam. As it says, we're an innovative workforce solutions company delivering holistic products and services to accelerate meaningful employment for everyone. We're minority, woman, and disability owned, with a vision of connecting talent, communities, and employers. So what that means basically is, first of all, Rangam's been around for about 27 years as a traditional staffing company. About 8 or 9 years ago, our co-owners here that you see pictured here just really recognize that there's a very strong population of individuals out there that are talented, skilled, very capable of career jobs. We're talking about people that are on the spectrum, neurodiverse, or have any kind of disability. And so what SourceAbled strives to do is to implement supportive, inclusive hiring programs in companies to kind of level that playing field, because what happens is obstacles are being put in, are out there for people with disabilities when it comes to job seeking and getting employment. Not intentional, but they're there. So we're trying to level that playing ground, so to speak. And we'll go in a little bit more about the SourceAbled and the program in future slides.
Yeah, and just so we're all kind of on the same page here, we are going to talk about all of the strengths and the abilities and all the wonderful things that people with disabilities or people who are neurodivergent can bring to a company. However, we do want to make sure the companies are aware, because companies are struggling to find new talent. They are interested to learn that this might be an untapped labor pool, that there's actually lots of people with autism or ADHD or learning differences or other kinds of neurodivergences who are unemployed or underemployed. That's a massive number worldwide. This is hard to kind of estimate, but it's pretty consistent across the globe that the neurodiverse community has very high unemployment and underemployment rates, as high as 85, 90%, right? You see this number here, 86% in some measures, in some countries. That's what we're finding. And it's not because of someone's inability to do the task. Like, it's not like 86% of autistic people can't work. That's not the case. What's happened is, as Ann described, we have unintentionally put up barriers in the way of autistic people, neurodivergent people. I think one of the most, maybe the easiest ways to understand this is we still assess talent, and every company does this, by using a traditional job interview, right? I'm sure you guys are all talking about this as you're getting prepared, to graduate and begin your careers. We still assess talent by sitting across the table from someone and engaging in conversation. So really, are we assessing their talent to perform the task, or are we really assessing their ability to carry a conversation? You know, autism is a disability whose hallmarks are challenges with social interaction and communication. If we're going to judge someone's talent with autism by using a traditional interview, we're not going to see that talent. We're going to miss them. They're going to continue to be unemployed and underemployed. So this is what we impress upon the companies we talk to. And so once we help them understand that, we say, look, we're not asking you to hire people with autism or ADHD out of a sense of charity. This is not so you can put it at the end of your year report to say, look how good we are. We're going to pat ourselves on the back. We did a nice thing for the community. No, we want companies that recognize people with neurodivergence, with disabilities, are going to make your company better, because they're going to bring new and different experiences, different ways of approaching the world, different ways of addressing old problems. This is what we have found. The companies that we work with who have hired neurodivergent people and people with disabilities, they see more diversity of thought. They see better problem solving, higher retention rates, and better overall morale for the entire company. It changes the culture. And it really is, we want companies that are fully committed to this, because they see this as solving a problem that they're having, right? This is going to help improve their bottom line and make them a better company. So these are the kind of companies that we choose to work with. And so that when you see the opportunities that Anne's going to talk about a little bit later, the companies that we work with, you know that they've been selected, that they've put in the time and the commitment to really show that they're behind this.
So I just wanted to ask, as a group, what do you think are the biggest barriers in a job search that you either come across or that you feel like you might, come across? So just feel free to put it in the chat or speak out loud, either way.
Like, what's like one of the first questions or problems you might run into? Anyone want to be brave and give a guess?
No right or wrong answer. All right, maybe we'll help you out. And we'll just throw up the first one that we see as a barrier.
Oh, Tracy
getting the interview.
Tracy did put in a good thought. Clothing,
Oh, did you?
Which is, I think, related to the interview.
Okay.
So clothing requirements, like what do I wear, right? That's a good question.
That is a good question. Yeah. Anything else, or should we show you our thoughts? Clothing is a very good option. Successfully navigating the interview. So let's say you get that interview, and now you're there in the interview and navigating. I mean, interviewing is a very stressful time for anybody. It's very anxiety inducing, and the population we work with, a lot of them are already dealing with anxiety and maybe feel like they're coming to the table a little bit beat up because perhaps they've had a hard time in the past with the interviewing process. So that is a barrier that's put up, and that makes it challenging. And then keeping the job once it's hired. So you get the interview, you write on with it, you get offered the job, and then you get on the job, and what happens in some situations, you're not in an environment that's supportive and inclusive. You're not at a company that understands that there's different accommodations that you might need to make yourself your most successful self. So again, there's no right or wrong answers, but the three biggest barriers that we see when working with people is getting the interview, successfully navigating it, and keeping the job once hired. And these are all three areas that the SourceAbled programs helps to address. Next one, please.
I'll just point out, you may notice that none of these things are actually like the ability to perform the job tasks, right? These are the problems that are getting in the way, are these kind of soft skills or the unwritten rules of the workplace. This is where people run into trouble, and this is where SourceAbled can help you.
So getting the interview, the resume. I love writing my resume. Said nobody ever. It's hard. It's difficult. It's time consuming, but it is so important. And it's the first thing that comes across to the hiring manager that's going to represent you. Next slide, please. So what kind of resume should I use? Again, no right or wrong answer, but you really should think this through when deciding what type. And maybe it will be different depending upon the job you're interviewing for. But 3 of the types of resumes you would consider is a traditional or chronological, and we'll go into what these mean. Next one, the functional resume, or the hybrid or combination resume. So the first one would be the traditional or chronological. I don't know if you guys can read this, a little bit unclear on mine, but the traditional resume is what you see most frequently. It's strictly formatted resume, typically using positions in chronological order. Usually there's like an overall summary at the top, and then it's very, like it says, chronological. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this format, and it's probably the most popular one, the one that's used most frequently. That being said, you need to keep in mind your situation. So you're all in school. I don't know if you've had, experiences, job experiences but to this point, but in general, the population we serve, there might be gaps in their resumes. And this kind of emphasizes those gaps. Traditionally, interviewers look at job gaps as, oh, this is a job hopper, get rid of that one. And this is part of what our program is trying to educate the hiring managers and the talent acquisition people about, is non-traditional talent have non-traditional resumes. Gaps don't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's more likely that they have not been in a supportive, inclusive environment. So this is definitely a resume that you can consider, but it's just one option. Next one, please. So I did just kind of talk about the pluses and minuses of the chronological. The functional resume puts more of the focus on the accomplishments and not so much on the dates. So if you were an individual that had, a job on, a job off, a job on, a job off, because you weren't in a supportive environment, then you would still have your summary at the top. But then this resume focuses more on your experience. As students who might not have a lot of experience yet, you could focus on academic experiences that would be translatable to roles that you're looking for. And then at the bottom, the work history, it does still list dates because people are going to want to see that, but the focus isn't on the dates. Okay, next. And then the hybrid resume, that's just a third option. It highlights the skills. It's what they call top loaded. I would say I see this one the least frequently. And again, it's a personal option, but I will say from working with various hiring managers that there is an opinion kind of broadly that there's like almost too much going on here. It's just kind of a lot and hard to focus on, but that doesn't mean it's not for you. And a lot of it also can depend upon what your field of choice is. If you're very creative, this might be a little bit more creative type of thing, where if you were more, an accountant or something that's a little bit more regimented, you might want to go more for one of the other 2 options. Next, please.
Can I just add, I wanted to add one thing that you mentioned, Anne, I think it's a great idea is, if you feel like, oh man, I don't have a lot of experience because I'm a college student, that makes all the sense in the world. What you could be thinking about though is you're building your portfolio. So that's a portfolio, could be documents, it could be web, applications, whatever you might be creating in your coursework, projects you've done. Don't throw all that stuff away. It could help you. It could be part of the case you make to an employer and to show them rather than tell them what you can do. So I really like those kind of portfolios. If you feel like you struggle to communicate what you're good at, but you can maybe show someone what you've done, that sometimes is a really great way to express it. Sorry, Anne.
Oh, no problem. So try and avoid looking outdated. Dave, you can just kind of go through the next 2 bullet points. Use a professional and free Gmail or Yahoo account. Don't use the AOL. It's considered outdated. The email should be listed by itself so that they're really zoning in on that. And the email should be professional. I'm surprised at the number of times I will see an email on a resume, and this is what I've seen, hotmama.com. You don't want to put that on your resume. It's not giving a professional, appearance or image. Another thing we would suggest is get rid of the objective and include a summary. I think in the past, people were told to put an objective up there. But the thought process on this is the objective is more like me. It's what's in it for me. You're trying to show your potential employer what's in it for them. What do you have to offer? So we would recommend more a summary of your experiences or of your education. And I would also recommend that that summary be very tailored towards the job that you're going for. So if you don't change anything else on the resume, for every resume that for every job, excuse me, that you are going for, look and see what their key core skills are, and try and, assuming you have that, fit that into summary and customize that for each job that you're applying to. And then just keep the font to a basic type of font, like one of these listed. Don't get, real scripty or something like that, because it can be hard to read. And these hiring managers see a lot of applications, a lot of resumes. If there's something that's going to make it difficult for them, they're less likely to pay attention to it. Next, please. So this was interesting to me because I actually didn't know this. Did you know you shouldn't really have solid lines separating the sections of your resume? And I was guilty of this. I used to have my name, my email, contact information, and then a solid line to separate it from my skills. A lot of I should say some, I don't know about it a lot, but there are some applicant tracking systems that will stop when they see that line. So basically what that's meaning is all they're seeing is your name and your email, and not your skill set. So you don't have a chance for that particular role if this particular applicant tracking system is stopping you at a solid line. And then this seems very common sense, to check your spelling, but you can't just go through spell check. I mean, it's not going to catch, read versus, two different words, like through versus through, or I'm trying to think of, words that are spelled properly, but not necessarily grammatically correct. What I always suggest is when you're done with your resume, you are so close to it, you may not even recognize an error that's going to jump out at somebody else who's never seen it before. So when you feel like you're good to go, just ask somebody who's never seen it, maybe somebody who's not in your field, because they might, say, this isn't clear to me. Ask somebody else to read that for you before you send it, just to have that second eye on it. And then don't forget transferable skills. So these are huge, especially if there's not a lot of experience under your belt other than academic experience, which is an experience. Dave, if you didn't mind, you could just click down a few. So some of those transferable skill examples: volunteer experiences, I bet you have transferable skills you don't even realize are a skill, but they are valid to future employers. Work experiences, definitely. Hobbies, a lot of hobbies have very strong transferable skills. And I'll just kind of give you an example. One of my main clients, we represent a lot of different clients throughout the states, but one of my main clients happens to be Pfizer. So just an example of a transferable skill: an individual was going for a lab role and they wanted experience following step-by-step instructions for the lab. They wanted experience sanitizing things in the lab. And this person wanted this role and says, well, I don't have that experience. Well, they did. They worked at a fast food restaurant and they were able to follow step-by-step directions, just like you would in the lab. They also were used to breaking down and cleaning, shake machines and fry machines and different things like that. That's sanitizing equipment. So think about what transferable skills you might have when you see a role you're interested in. If you're not sure and you're working with SourceAbled, ask your recruiter, ask your contact person, help me out with pulling out some of my transferable skills. And then I kind of touched on this: customize your resume. I know it's time consuming. I know it's not fun, but really strongly recommend for every role you want to apply to, look at what those, must-haves are on the qualifications. Look at your resume. A lot of times I'll see people who have that skill set and I'll ask them, well, do you have this? Because it's a must-have and I don't see it on your resume. And they're like, oh yeah, I've done that. So if they have a list of items that they're saying are important or nice to have, and you have that experience, make sure you bring it into your resume, whether it be on a skill set list or your summary, but get it in there. So when they're going back to check the box, they can say, oh, okay, Anne's got this. We would like to talk to her. Next, please.
If I could add one thing, Anne.
Oh, absolutely.
I love what you said. We have met some candidates who they're graduating from a college. Maybe they have a biology degree. I'm just making this up. But we then, after speaking to the person, we learn that he or she taught themselves how to code. And like that wasn't on their resume because it wasn't like they didn't take the coursework at the college. But I'm telling you, employers would love to know that you were able to teach yourself to code, or you have skills like that, or hobbies. So, don't dismiss it. If you're wondering whether it's worth putting on the resume, like that's why we're here. Like we're happy. We should be a tool in your toolbox. We want to be one of the tools you're using. You can call us, talk to us. We have experienced recruiters who know what the employers are looking for and could give you that advice.
So networking, this is one of my favorite topics.
Mhm.
First of all, how do you feel about that word networking? When somebody says, okay, network to find yourself an opportunity, what is your impression or your gut feeling? Anybody, you can, again, chat or unmute yourself.
I know I always used to get super nervous with networking just because it involved talking to new people, and I always associated it with larger events. I've learned that it can be smaller events, so it's a little less scary, but for the longest time it was
Absolutely. Yep. Anybody else? I think, Liam, what you said is pretty common. I know when I was first getting out of school a long time ago, the idea of a networking or networking event, I mean, oh my gosh, I would break out into cold sweat. But over time, I realized the advice I would have is don't overcomplicate it and don't underestimate the importance, because find it hugely important. So networking can just be talking to, like it shows here, your family, your support providers, if you have some, your school, your professors, your friends, your connections. What happens a lot of time is you make that initial connection, and it can be social, very social, and then the networking takes a life of its own. So people start networking for you. You're at a barbecue, a family barbecue, and Aunt Sue says, "Oh, what are you doing after school?" "Oh, I want to become a fill in the blank." Next thing you know, Aunt Sue is meeting somebody who needs that person. They're like, "Oh, you know what? I know somebody." So I'm just going to share with you like a personal story, because honestly, every job I have gotten since my first job has been networking. Usually somebody else on my own behalf. But I've had two careers, one pre-kids, one post. But my first career was in marketing research. I got out of school. I really wanted to work for this company called AC Nielsen. That was like the research company. So you may not be familiar with that company. So kind of fill in the blank with whatever the company is that you might want to work for. But this was a huge company, and it was the premier market research company. So I happened to be in the car with my boyfriend and his parents. We happened to drive by AC Nielsen. I said, that's where I want to work. And my boyfriend's husband was a cop at O'Hare Airport. He's like, what, AC Nielsen? I'm like, yeah. He says, oh, well, I let AC Nielsen Jr.'s chauffeur park illegally at the airport all the time. I'll just tell him that, I know somebody that would really like to work for the company. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think so. This is never going to happen. So next thing I know, he's reaching, my boyfriend, husband now, but so my father-in-law reaches out to me and says, oh, I talked to AC Jr.'s chauffeur. He talked to AC Jr. He talked to HR, and you're supposed to call this guy Mike and set up an interview. And I'm thinking, no way. I didn't want to call. I was embarrassed to call. The only reason I called is because I would be asked if I called, and I didn't want to lie to him. So I called, and Mike at HR says, oh yeah, we're expecting your call. I didn't have anything that put me above anybody else, as far as interviewing and getting a job, other than that connection. And you better believe if AC Jr. is telling HR to talk to Ann, he's going to talk to me. So I got that job, and every job since has been somebody networking on my behalf. So it's hugely important. It's not as scary as you might think. One other recommendation I would have, if you don't mind going to the next page, Dave.
Sure. Oh, if I could just add one.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to just echo and just let you know that Ann's not unique here. I'm the same way. I've gotten my jobs. My mom helped me get one of my first jobs. I got this job at Rangam thanks to some friends and connections I had made. So I want to just impress upon you, because I've heard other people who are like reluctant to take help, right? Please don't be. Everyone networks this way, and everyone gets their job this way. And if this is really challenging for you, which we understand it can be, let SourceAbled help you do this. Yep. So thanks, Dan.
Sure. So one of the things I recommend is, sorry, I messed up there. If you can just do one more jump.
Yep.
I personally recommend putting together a card, like about the size of a business card, as a leave behind after you network. Just keep it in your wallet, your gym bag, whatever might be comfortable. But just something that would kind of give a little teaser about who you are and what you want to do. So in my example, I use my current job, and I believe everyone's entitled to meaningful employment. I help implement supportive, inclusive hiring programs at companies for individuals on the spectrum, neurodiverse and disabled. So somebody who's in this population that's looking for a job might later think, oh, wait a minute, who was it I talked to? So I have my contact information. And in my case, the QR code would go directly to the Rangam SourceAbled site. I would recommend for you to have your QR code go directly to your resume. So I've listed a couple sites here. One, the template, if you just go to Microsoft Word and go to I think it's called Business Card Template, there's probably 20 templates you can use. I just happened to pull up one of them that they had. You can just use that template to create your own. And then as far as the QR code goes, the second site listed is a site to create a QR code with, at no cost. So to just a thought, but I really feel strongly, especially if networking isn't your comfort level, you still have to make some contact, whether it be a friend, relative. But then from there, give them some cards, keep some cards of your own, and it'd be a great leave behind so that that person isn't left struggling later with like, who was that I wanted, that mentioned that I thought would be really great.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion. Ann and I recently recorded a session with another partner that we'll be pushing out again in the winter, and it's about upskilling yourself, but includes how to prepare an elevator pitch about yourself, how to be ready to talk about yourself if you have only 30 seconds. How do you say it? What do you say, right? Or if you have a minute and a half and you're walking down the street with an executive, how do you put it in a nice, concise way? So these are other tools that we would love to provide to you. So just stay tuned for other help like that you can use in your networking.
So the struggle, have you ever wished you could have a direct line to hiring managers? Well, you probably know when a job opportunity goes out on a career website, these hiring managers get hundreds, if not more, of resumes as in response to these roles. So it would be fabulous to have a direct line to that hiring manager to get yourself seen and noticed amongst the masses. And that's what SourceAbled are. We are that direct line. I want to kind of make it clear that the opportunities that SourceAbled represents with our clients, they're not watered down opportunities. They're not opportunities that, they do A, B, and C out on the website, but for this role, it's just A and B. It's the same career opportunities as are offered on the career website of our clients. The difference is how you come to get to that. The support provided during, prior to the interview process, during the interview process, and once you've obtained the roles. And we're that direct line. We advocate for special skills and we support you during the entire process. So I'll just give you an example of one way we're that direct line. Again, one of the clients, and we have many, but I happen to represent Pfizer as one of the clients. What they do to help alleviate some of those barriers that are out there is if you apply for an opportunity, I'm just going to say a lab tech. If you apply for an opportunity as a lab tech, then for every 3 individuals that we present to Pfizer, in this case, for a lab tech role, one, they skip the interview with the talent acquisition person. So if we say you're qualified, you're qualified. You've already skipped one hurdle. Second, you're guaranteed that the hiring manager is going to look at all 3 resumes. That alone is huge because, again, there's hundreds that go out there and you're already getting the eyes of the hiring manager on your resume. And 3, we're guaranteed that at least one, if not all 3, of the individuals that we present to the hiring manager will be interviewed, and we will get, if they don't move forward, we'll get an understanding of why, not just not qualified enough. We need to know more information so that we can then help you for the next opportunity.
So we provide a lot of training. We talked a lot today about things that we can do to help you as job seekers and candidates. But to be totally transparent with you, most of our work is done with the companies. We're there working with them to help them change their culture, change the way they recruit workers with disabilities, the way they interview them, the way they accommodate their needs. So a lot of our time and effort and all of our revenue, all of our fees, right, our payments come from the companies. So that's something that we should have mentioned to you, that this never costs you anything, and it wouldn't cost your school anything to use our tool. And that's thanks to the companies that are paying us to create these tools, to create these trainings for them. I know Ann and I have mentioned Pfizer. I just want to mention, in North Carolina in particular, there's also Wells Fargo is another client of ours, TIAA. We also have a long-standing relationship with companies like Johnson & Johnson and JP Morgan and Chase. So I just wanted to kind of, I wanted to add that in case we had not mentioned any of those. So it's a nice mix of some global corporations. And we showed these corporations have hundreds of thousands of employees sometimes. Finding that right person, as Ann mentioned, is really hard. So I just wanted to say, we have those right people, those champions within the company. And so often, or in almost every case, not every case, but the champion at these companies are parents of people with autism or ADHD, or they are autistic, neurodivergent, self-advocates themselves. And they've raised high enough in this company to make a difference. So that's who we work with, right? That's who we talk to. That's the folks that we want to get buy-in from. And we give a lot of training. We spend a lot of time working with the companies, preparing them, preparing their culture, preparing their procedures and processes before they can ever start recruiting and interviewing from our population. So we go through a whole series of trainings. Here's a couple of them. The best part about our trainings, and I'm really proud of this, is that it's all been created by and is delivered by neurodivergent people. So Ann and we do not identify as being neurodivergent, but a lot of our colleagues do. And the folks who make our trainings that we then give to Pfizer and to other companies, they're autistic, they have ADHD, they have learning disabilities. So these are, they're professionals in the field, but they also are informed by their personal experiences. And I wanted you to know that, because I've been part of trainings and education before that didn't always have such an authentic, lived experience. And I think this is what makes ours really good. Here's a little bit more about the kind of education that we provide to the company, right? And remember, again, this is for the businesses that we really work with. So we spend time with them, helping them. They're not going to become clinicians, right? They're not going to be able to diagnose a disorder or anything like that. But they're going to start to understand and recognize that, first of all, people with disabilities deserve every opportunity that anyone else does, and that we've actually been maybe putting up these barriers unintentionally. So we need to look for those barriers, look for those points where we can help erase those barriers and make sure that we're creating a more inclusive workplace environment for everybody. The trainings that we do are geared and around disability and neurodivergence in particular, but we cover lots of topics around kind of diversity, equity, access, and inclusion, right? So this is part of that bigger movement of making sure we're not discriminating against anyone, making sure that we're bringing all opportunities to all populations. And the good news is people with disabilities are finally included. They're finally front and center of these programs. So not only are we working with like direct hiring managers and moms and dads or self-advocates who are in these companies, but we're also often working with like their chief diversity officer, someone who's building policy that's going to dictate how the business performs, how they go about hiring and retaining workers. So it's a very important kind of building and changing of culture that takes time. Some of the other stuff we talk about in these trainings is a lot on the invisible disabilities, right? The unapparent neurodivergent conditions. We spend a lot of time on that and on like appropriate language. A lot of people are afraid of what they don't know. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So, I mean, how awful, right? That sometimes we might be not hiring someone with a disability because we're afraid we might say something wrong and offend them or open us up to a lawsuit. These are terrible reasons not to hire someone, right? We can solve it with some education and training. And so that's what we do with our learning and development team. And this is you for
yes, it is. So some of the things that we focus on for the talent that we represent are your education, your credentials, certification, experience, whether it be academic, hands-on, or transferable, titles, skills, training, and knowledge. You could go ahead and So those are the competency things that we focus on. What we don't focus on are things that we consider, you know, a fit. So appearance. I mean, yes, you need to be professional, you know, look as professional as possible, but you know, we all have different personalities. So not so much your appearance, like, you know, if you have purple hair, so be it. Can you do the job? You know, your look, your dress, your personality, composure, manners, interests. That's not really what we're looking at. And it shouldn't be what we're looking at. And I'll just use a personal example. My son, who I mentioned is autistic, when he gets overly stressed, and this happens at work as well, he turns around 3 times in a circle. There's no doubt that looks a little odd, and we get some looks, but does it affect the job that he's doing? No, it doesn't. So that's what we focus on. This is what we help the hiring managers focus on, the talent acquisition managers focus on, and it's part of that training that Dave just spoke about. Next, please. So again, to open the doors to the talent we represent, we focus on what does the talent have to offer, the qualifiable requirements, understanding employment gaps, because again, non-traditional talent may have non-traditional resumes, translatable or transferable skills, and other skills that you bring to the table that could be very valid. And then again, don't close the door, because I keep repeating it, but non-traditional candidates have non-traditional resumes. So we're telling the people we work with, don't close the door because you see some gaps in employment. There's probably a very valid reason for that. And also something we called fixed versus flexible requirements. What we mean by that is when we have a new opportunity through a company that we're working with, we'll go through the job description and we try and hone in on what is really needed. I mean, a lot of times, maybe out of habit, a job description will say, I'm just using an example, but bachelor's degree in accounting or whatever, and 2 years experience. So we might say to them, okay, what if they had an associate's degree and 4 years experience? You know, would you do that? Or just kind of work with them to see, what do you really absolutely have to have and what is a nice to have? Because a lot of the people we work with have not had the opportunity to have long-term experience. Of course, out of school, you're not likely to. But for those people who have been out for a while, they may not have that long-term experience, again, because they're not in a supportive, inclusive environment. So we work with the hiring managers to really understand what's something that's non-flexible and fixed versus something that, yeah, we could work with that. Yeah. Next, please.
This is something we also see, and I know we've talked about it, where people with disabilities often will count themselves out of a job too quickly. And women tend to do this more than men too, where like a woman, say with a disability, might find the job description and say, oh, too bad, I only have 9 out of the 10. I guess I can't apply. A white guy, a white cis, you know, able-bodied guy like me tends to say, oh, look, I have 1 out of the 10, let me apply. And sometimes a guy like me gets that job, you know? So don't count yourself out. Know that other people are not, you know, counting themselves out as often as people with disabilities are. And that we want to help you avoid that. And we're trying to help the companies avoid that too.
Right. And one real life example, the fixed versus flexible, I had an individual I was working with. He had some kind of physical disability, and the job description said he had to be able to reach things on the shelf and lift, like, I don't know what it was, 20 pounds. He couldn't do it. He physically could not do it. But we went to the hiring manager and we said, okay, what percentage of the job is this? Can his coworker put the stuff on the shelf for him and lift that? And the hiring manager was very open to it. Again, a lot of times it's just what they're used to putting down. Right. But if you draw that out and we really focus on what's fixed, can't change, versus what has a little leeway, some doors can open up. So how do we build upon your career search? Well, we talked about the fact that these are the same opportunities. They're out there on the career website. It's how you get to it and through it and then support it beyond. And that's kind of what this chart talks about. And I should mention, because I hadn't done it prior, the opportunities that we represent, we have contract roles, contract to hire roles, and direct full-time hire roles, meaning you would be an employee of our client. So those are all those type of opportunities. Once you register on our site as a job seeker, and again, can't reiterate enough, there's no cost for that. Somebody will reach out to you and do what we refer to as a meet and greet. It's about a half an hour meeting where basically we get to know you. We get to know, of course, your resumes, your skill set, what you're looking for. We help you to pull out those transferable skills. But a large part of it too is understanding what you need. So what kind of accommodations can we request on your behalf to make you as successful as possible at the job? Sometimes, I mean, and not everybody will have one, but they can be as easy as I need noise canceling headphones. It can be, I need to be seated somewhere where there's like not a lot of traffic because it's too distracting. It can be, I need to be able to take a quick break to walk around the office and de-stress. It can be, I need a full-time interpreter. It's whatever you need to make you the most successful self, supportive and inclusive in the job environment. So of course, like I said, we discuss career goals. We do mock interview prep, which I think that's pretty normal, but we spend a lot of time doing this because we know our clients. So for instance, and I'm sorry to keep using the same example, but Fahey is just my main client. I know their standard is to do panel interviews. Well, panel interviews are pretty scary for anybody. But if you've got somebody who's maybe who has anxiety, to have 4 or 5 people rapid fire questions at you can almost be too much. So we've gotten Pfizer to allow us, instead of a panel interview, to do 4 mini interviews, or to do 2 interviews with 2 people, talking to you versus 5 people. We teach them, as one of the trainings that Dave talked about earlier is interviewing training. So the hiring managers, the talent acquisition people have gone through interview training so that they know the best way to get the information they need without being like too vague. We can also often get questions in advance of the interview, not the exact questions, but get a feel for what those interview questions might be like. And then we support you during the interview. So somebody from our staff that knows you, who's been working with you, will be on the interview with you virtually. 9 times out of 10, when I've done it, I just say, hi, I'm Ann, and then I get myself, off the camera and on mute, and generally don't even need to pop back on. But there's been a time or two where I was there, and I've been told, even if I say nothing, that just to know I'm there to support them if needed can be very, comforting. And then, oh, that's the last one. I jumped ahead of myself. So the SourceAbled members there on the interview.
Sorry.
Well, no, you're good. So part of, I think this is a huge part of the program personally, and I guess as a mom of an individual on the spectrum, we have this whole team behind the person when they get hired. And it doesn't matter if you're a contract person or a full-time direct hire role. It's called our concierge team support ecosystem. So you see that the person in the very middle that everybody revolves around is the talent. It's you, the talent. So for that talent, when we get someone hired, we right away align them with a peer partner and a mentor. So the peer partner is somebody that works on their team at the company that they will be working with. It's somebody they can go to with any question. They don't have to worry about it sounding stupid or affecting their job. It's that person that can help them navigate things and help them feel supported and included. Then the mentor or ally is somebody at the same company, not necessarily a part of the team, that is there to help you grow your career. So those 2 people are closely aligned to you. Then we have our WDSM, which you see on the bottom. It's our SourceAbled Workforce Development Support Manager. That person is aligned with you, the talent, to be your go-to person to help you with questions you might have, any difficulties you might have. And that WDSM is to support both you, the talent, and the hiring manager at the company that we represent. And the whole package, so to speak, is wrapped up with our concierge team, and they are there to support you. There are ongoing meetings. Now there is fewer as many as are necessary. They start off like once a week, and then they decline over time to much lesser amounts, unless it's needed. But this is a whole support system behind you that does checks and balances, just make sure things are going smoothly. Because 9 times out of 10, if an issue arises, it's a miscommunication. It's a misunderstanding. It is something that we can address and work on and resolve before it becomes an issue. So this support ecosystem is in play for 6 months. Now, that being said, once the 6 months is up, it kind of just intrinsically continues because you guys have now a team. But beyond that, we're never going to say, oh no, it's 6.5 months, we're not helping you. You know, if you need us, we're there to support and to help you.
Yeah, and if I could just add, I've been part of programs before and at other places. I'm aware of other initiatives out there, some really, really great ones, lots of good ones. This, I think, is what sets Rangam SourceAbled apart from many of the others, is this sustainability. It's what happens after you've been hired. We want to see not just jobs, we want to see careers. We want to see long-term retention. And so this is our commitment and the commitment of our client companies, right? It's not just about getting you in the front door. We want to see, you know, not everyone's going to be there for 5 years, but we want to see you, you know, maybe you're going somewhere else for 5 years and it started here. And that would make us very, very happy too. So we're wrapping up. You know, we've taken a lot of your time, and thank you so much for your attention during this presentation. This is just kind of a summary slide here at the end, reminding you we are SourceAbled. Our parent company is called Rangam. We are that workforce solutions company, and the benefits to being part of this program are listed below. And this is what we show to companies, right? So again, companies are kind of our client directly, and we deliver to them talent like you guys. And we give that additional support and education and training for all the players to make sure that everyone is successful. So with that, Leanne, thank you so much for hosting us. And Fahey, did you want to have anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you could just give them a real quick example. If you click on the www.sourceable.com,
yep,
that'll just show you some of the opportunities available throughout the company. It's not focused just on like the North Carolina area. This is what you'll see when you go to register as a job seeker. Up at the top, it says job seeker. To the left of the login, Dave, it says job seeker at the top.
Oh, sorry, this one. Yep.
That's all right. And then you can say just search jobs.
Yep.
This is just now to give you an idea. And this is what you'll see. We'll just scroll down a little. You can filter it by like location. You can filter it by, you know, job type, that thing. But just to look at the first thing on the list as an example, this is for a process tech, happens to be in Andover. Let's say you were interested on that. You just click on the link. And it's going to look very much like any job description. One thing I would say, just to make sure you're aware of, is when you read the job descriptions, some of our clients focus on a certain target area of the population. So some of our companies, I would say more of them than not, focus on anybody on the spectrum, neurodiverse, or any kind of disability as defined by American Disability Act. But you would want to read up front, because sometimes they'll say people on the autism spectrum welcome to apply, or people that are autistic or neurodiverse welcome to apply. So you just kind of want to look at that. It'll tell you whether it's a full-time hire, direct hire, or a part-time hire. And then as you scroll down again, it's going to look very much like any job description, what you must have, your nice to haves, physical requirements, and just that type of information. At the very bottom, you will see where you can just do a quick apply or log in and apply. And it's really very easy. But once you click on one of those and apply, that sends an alert out to our recruiters and also to the account manager who's responsible for the role, that, hey, you know, Dave's applied for this role. Look at his credentials and see, you know, if it's a good match for the qualifications. So again, if you would like, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, and I just wanted to ask, sorry. So you can, that's the quick way to search for a job.
Right.
We would love you to register.
Absolutely.
So if you come register here, give me 1 second, then choose your country. I think most of you will probably be in the US, but we are a global workforce solutions company, you guys. We haven't mentioned this, but a lot of the companies we've been talking about, yes, they have jobs in North Carolina. They also have jobs in India and Ireland and across Europe. So just so you know, that is out there. But you would create your own job seeker profile here. It's all free. It's quite simple. You know, I know you've probably signed up for a gazillion websites, but I encourage you to do this because, and maybe you can help me here, but once you're registered, you can set alerts so that you're not having to come here and search every day, or, you know, go look and use that zip code search. You can set alerts around your location. So if there's new jobs in your area, you will get an alert. So, and am I accurate with that? Once you register, that you can kind of change your settings for communication?
You can, yeah, you can change your settings. I mean, and you can definitely do that. What I would recommend is 2 or 3 times a week, just go in, just pop in, because then you get a better feel for the job descriptions. And we literally we get new roles every single day.
Yeah, every day it changes. Yeah.
So if you go to the last slide, I just think it might have the contact information. If anybody has any questions, I mean, if you're like me, it'll be a day or two later. I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have asked. I think on the next page, you might have the contact information. If not, I can put it on the chat.
Yep, here we go.
Yeah, and at rangam.com is where you could go to ask me questions. You're welcome to call me as well. Also, you know, maybe you're like, okay, I'm not sure about this. Call me, ask me questions, send me an email or a text. Or if you just want to send me your resume and say, hey, I'm interested, then I'll look at the resume. I'll call you back and set up what we call as a meet and greet. But what kind of questions you have? I mean, we covered a lot of material here.
If you guys have any questions, you're welcome to include them